everyone, and welcome again to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm going to show you how to make this giant Starbucks cinnamon latte cake. If you enjoy your large morning cup of your favourite Starbucks beverage, you're going to love this cake. If you're not already a subscriber, you might not have seen all of my other 3D cakes, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and check all of them out. So to start with, I've got my Starbucks logo here, and you can get a copy of this in the description box below, or you can just Google the image and download it yourself. I've got a black cake board, and I've got two cake setup boards. One's a 5-inch, which is a bit smaller than my cake, and one's an 8-inch. I've got 3 of my chocolate and cinnamon spice 6-inch cakes. You can get a copy of this recipe at the bottom right hand corner of the screen now. I've trimmed the dome tops of 2 of my cakes and left one just as it is. I've got my fondant roller, some white fondant, I've got some store-bought caramel sauce, and I've got about a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. I've got some chocolate ganache, some vanilla buttercream frosting, and I've got a piping bag with a large star tip. I've got my large serrated knife, a sharp knife, my offset spatula, a paintbrush, a pair of scissors, some edible flour glue, and a green edible marker. So the first thing I need to do is trim the dome top off my 3rd cake. So just using the serrated knife, I'm going to carefully cut it off so I've got a nice flat surface, but I'm not going to get rid of this piece of cake because I'm going to use it a bit later on. I'm going to start stacking my cakes now, and I'm starting with the largest cake board at the bottom, and I'm going to place one of my cakes on the board. I'm going to cover this with a nice layer of buttercream frosting, pop the next cake on, do the same thing with the frosting, and finally the 3rd layer. Using some of my chocolate ganache now, I'm going to fix on the smallest cake board to the top of the cake stack. I'm actually going to be creating this cake upside down, so this is going to be the very bottom of my giant cup of Starbucks cinnamon latte. Using my small knife now, I'm going to start carving the cake, remembering that this cup is upside down for the moment, so using the edge of the small 5-inch cake board as my starting point, I'm going to trim the cake back until it resembles an upside down coffee cup. Once I've got nice tapered sides on the cake and it resembles an upside down coffee cup, I'm going to cover the whole cake with my chocolate ganache, making sure to leave the top board nice and clean, and then pop it in the fridge for about 15 minutes to set. Once the cake comes out of the fridge, the ganache is nice and firm to the touch. I'm going to smooth over the surface of the ganache using my offset spatula, which I heat up in some boiling water, wipe off any of the excess water, and smooth it across the surface of the ganache. Here I've got my white fondant, which I've rolled out to about 3mm thick. I'm going to carefully roll it back onto my roller and drape it over the top of my cake. Now it's just a matter of opening out the fondant and smoothing down the sides, trimming off the excess at the bottom, and use a little ball of white fondant to smooth down the sides. I'm just going to cut out this top circle of fondant as well, which is covering my cake board. I'm going to use this in a moment to create the logo, which is at the front of the cup. But before I can do anything else, I need to flip my cake up the right way. So I've just placed my cake board at the top and just carefully grab from the underneath of my round cake board and flip it upside down. Now I've got my cake standing the right way up. I'm going to carefully lift off this top cake board. This chocolate and cinnamon spice cake smells and tastes absolutely delicious, and it's very hard to let a piece go without eating it. But by some magic, the top of my cake has survived, and I've got it back here now, so I'm going to pop it onto the top of the cake. But first I need to add a layer of my buttercream frosting. Then I'm going to add the little dome piece to the very top of the cake and cover it nicely with my buttercream frosting, bringing the frosting right down so that it meets the fondant. This gives a nice dome shape to the coffee cup. To make the top rim or the very edge of the coffee cup, I'm going to roll out this white fondant into a very long thin snake and attach it to the very top of the cup using my edible flour glue. To create the logo, I'm using the round disc of fondant that I cut out before, and I've cut it down to size to fit my template. I've cut out the main white sections of the template, that being her body and the shapes above her head, and I'm using my edible green marker to outline these areas. Here I've removed just the two side pieces of the logo, and just by looking at the template I'm going to draw the wavy lines that fill in these gaps. Now I'm going to shade in the area above her head. I'm going to cut her head out of the template and trace around that onto my fondant, filling in her features, drawing in her hair and shading in the final solid green areas. Using a little bit of my flower glue, I'm going to carefully lift up my fondant and stick the logo onto the front of my giant cup. For the final touches, I'm going to add a nice big swirl of my vanilla buttercream frosting. This is going to be like the whipped cream on top of my latte. Drizzle it with some of my caramel sauce and sprinkle it with some cinnamon. And here it is, my giant Starbucks cinnamon latte cake. This is definitely a cake for the senses. Not only does it look like a giant version of a Starbucks cinnamon latte, it also tastes like one. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a like if you did, and make sure to check out my chocolate and cinnamon spiced cake recipe by clicking the link on screen now. I love to hear from you guys, so let me know in the comment section below what your favourite Starbucks drink is. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can see more creative cakes just like this one. I hope you tune in next time, and thanks for watching.